Hey, what's up YouTube, Scavenger here, and we're back on day 46 of our 100 player fan game series. So the format of this video is going to go a little bit different to normal. How we're going to do this is we're going to start by looking at a few combats first, all the action stuff, and then we're going to jump into some behind the scenes like economy and what we're producing. So one of the first things to note about what's happening here, what you're seeing on screen, is this is a rocket attack that we launched against our opponents in the late stage of the war. Now this took a lot of maths and a lot of figuring out to do, which is why North Sudan is handling it. So Rog did all the maths and he figured out and has timed it so that 6 different locations will fire 14 rockets and will hit one moving target in Rubent. So we're going to have a look at what that looks like in the next couple of minutes. So we're still using a rocket spam tactic because, as you can see, my food production is negative. We can't afford to produce the amount of food that requires to oppose our enemies' armies. So we have to go for rockets. It's that simple. The stack that we're firing these rockets against is comprised of 45 units. We could, if we needed to, oppose it. However, based on its composition with anti-air, anti-tank guns, its infantry component, and its artillery component, we're going to have a hard time. And we can see that target there is a very mixed unit. So we can see those rockets coming down, 14 rockets fired from 6 different locations, and you'll see the amount of damage it does. It's actually pretty insane. Do we feel bad for using these tactics? Nah, we don't have the food, and this is how we got to play if we want to win. So already you can see that we have shredded 20 units off that stack, and we still have quite a few rockets to go, down to 21. There we go, 30 units dead, and we've still got 3 rockets left. So this attack here basically takes the edge of the stack here and makes it more manageable for our own smaller armies to deal with. There we go, finishes with 8 units. So what we're going to do now is going to move on to another combat that's happening on the other side of Africa. So we're just over in the Middle East, we're now in Africa. Venezuela has launched another attack against us, and as you can see, we're gearing up to fire rockets to defend our coast. Now, Venezuela has provided and is maintaining a solid sub-screen, which means our navy can't get down there to attack the convoys directly, so we're having to rely on our rockets, of which we've fired 2, but we've got 5 more en route to the airbase to fire as well. And they will be our main way of dealing with the stack. We've also got a small infantry army of 35 moving down. However, 35 against 192 is not great odds. So hopefully our rockets can deal some major damage. Because we got our naval bombers up there, we can see exactly what he's got there, and he's got a hell of a lot of submarines to stop us, so I doubt we're going to get our navy in there. In fact, you'll be able to see that pretty much now. You can see that our submarines have engaged the sub-wall, which is out in front of the Venezuelan fleet, and our destroyers and battleships are engaging to try wear it down and try get through it even faster. However, I believe it's very unlikely that we'll be able to get through that sub-wall in time. So we just jump forward a bit, we can see that the rocket is now approaching and it is 50 seconds out. In an ideal world, a rocket like this at the max level deals 30 damage to ships, so we should expect each rocket to take out around 6 units. However, we have to keep in mind that he also has an escort with it, so his battleships, his cruisers, and his other units that are in his main fleet will also absorb some damage. We can also see there as well that we fired those other 5 rockets. Sadly, from memory, we do not get to see these hit, but we'll see the results of them anyway. So let's zoom back in and see how those rockets go. 2 rockets against 192 convoys and a very mean battle group. Ideally, we'd want to sink 12 convoys here. However, as I said before, that battle fleet is going to absorb some of that damage. So let's see what the results are here. So as we kind of hoped, and we got very fortunate on this, we rolled a perfect roll and we were able to successfully sink 12 convoys. Now it's up to the other 5 rockets to deal the bulk of the damage before the Venezuelan troops get ashore. So we're back a little bit later on, and as you can see, there is some North Sudan rockets in the air. Rog has fired 9 of these off to hopefully catch some of these bad boys as they enter the province. So just adding on and following off from where we left off, we fired those 5 rockets and we were successful in actually in total bringing that stack of 92 all the way down to 147. So we pretty much took away a quarter of its power. Now, considering we only have an army of 35, that's significantly better odds than we had before. At the same time too, we can see that our scouts reported in and have noticed that the British Columbian fleet is moving in position to trap us. We're going to get out of there as fast as we can. However, in the process of trying to get out of there, Venezuela successfully engaged our destroyers in direct combat, so they will not be able to make this retreat. However, destroyers are pretty cheap to replace. It's the capital ships that we need to get out of there ASAP and secure and keep safe. They're not as easy to replace, especially when you're trying to spam out rockets, which eat a lot of metal. So as you can see, we're back a little bit later on, and we can see those 9 rockets are honing in on position. Now, very fortunately for Venezuela, he used the little jump province tactic to jump ahead, and this threw us off a bit. So actually, what's going to happen here is we've wasted 9 rockets, and you'll see that shortly, that none of them hit, and they don't deal any damage. Now, had these have hit, we would have expected to have probably killed around 15 enemy units, potentially pushing on 20, which would have in total brought the stack down to 120, which would have been awesome for us and would have made it way more manageable. What we can't see at the moment is, at the same time, the British Columbian fleet is also escorting an East Amazonas invasion party, which will be joining in the invasion, once again, with Venezuela pretty soon. So as you can see, those rockets hit and they just missed. So we're gonna have to work on our timing a bit there. We thought we had it down with our attack earlier, however, clearly not. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump over and we're going to have a look at something else that's happening elsewhere in the world. So this is personally one of my favorite combats of this whole game, okay? So what we haven't seen at this point is, while we were fighting those other wars elsewhere, our ally was unsuccessful in holding the territory he had in Romania, Yugoslavia, and Greece, and this allowed British Columbia to come in and capture it. Now, we had troops further north. However, they couldn't come down to recapture this territory, or else we'd leave the northern territories exposed and BC would just come in and capture them. So what I did was I used all of my available paratroopers at the time, which I believe was 11, to fly in and capture all of the industrial complexes we had lost. So from Italy and Crete, I successfully launched paratrooper raids and captured every industrial center in Greece, Yugoslavia, and parts of Romania. And very fortunate for me, and unlike for BC, he'd started producing troops in these. And if I had been an hour later, this whole thing would have failed, because he was producing anti-air guns and anti-tank guns. So I landed at the perfect time, captured them as they were nearing completion, and without realizing it, I went from having no troops in Greece, Romania, and Yugoslavia to having nearly an army of 20. So my 11 paratroopers plus the handful of troops I captured from him. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to jump forwards, and you'll see that in a second what that looks like. So this is the last little picture I was able to get of this, but as you can see, within the day, just from my tactics I used here, I was able to completely recapture this region, and you can see that although the morale is low, it's back in our hands. And this was a very successful combat and a great use of paratroopers on my end. I've never deployed them in this numbers before, however the deployment was very successful, and within one day we were able to capture all of Greece, all of Yugoslavia pretty much, and pretty much all of Romania, so that was a definite win. Apart from these combats here, not much else happened on day 46, apart from us spamming out more rockets and carrying on building paratroopers. So we're going to leave the episode here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.